The uniform lay across Emily Rivera's bed, crisp navy blue against her faded floral comforter. She ran her fingers over the gold wings pin, the emblem she'd dreamed of wearing since she was 12. 21 now, standing in her cramped Chicago apartment, Emily couldn't quite believe this moment had arrived. The morning light filtered through thin curtains, illuminating the New York travel posters that covered nearly every inch of wall space. Emily's reflection stared back at her as she fastened the last button on her jacket. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the scared girl from Phoenix who'd grown up with a father whose approval was as scarce as rain in the desert. Her mother had left when Emily was 8, unable to withstand her husband's rigid control. For years, Emily had watched planes overhead, imagining herself escaping into the sky. "This uniform means freedom," she whispered to herself. "This job is my ticket out." Her roommate Tara moved around the kitchenette, preparing coffee in the early morning darkness. Tara had been flying for 3 years already. She'd helped Emily navigate the application process, letting her crash on her couch when Emily first arrived in Chicago with nothing but determination. Emily practiced her safety announcement in the bathroom mirror one last time. Tara watched from the doorframe, her uniform slightly wrinkled, her eyes tired from a late return flight. She warned Emily about the senior pilots. They thought they owned the sky, and sometimes the crew that came with it. Emily nodded, trying not to show her anxiety as she grabbed her small roller bag. O'Hare Airport hummed with early morning activity as Emily made her way through security. She arrived at the gate 45 minutes early, determined to familiarize herself with the aircraft before passengers arrived. The lead flight attendant, Sandra, was already on board, checking emergency equipment with efficient movements. She instructed Emily to stay professional, smile, and never get too friendly with the cockpit crew, warning they would eat her alive. As Emily moved through her assigned section, passengers began boarding. She found herself falling into a rhythm of greeting, assisting, smiling, all while fighting the flutter of nerves in her stomach. It wasn't until the final boarding call that she got her first glimpse of Captain Daniel Cole. He emerged from the cockpit, silver-flecked dark hair and confident posture immediately commanding attention. Emily estimated he was in his early 50s, his face weathered but handsome. As he addressed the crew, Emily noticed the gold wedding band on his left hand. When his gaze briefly met hers, she felt an unexpected jolt. Not attraction exactly, but recognition of something familiar in his eyes. A certain weariness behind the confidence. He seemed like someone who had everything figured out, Emily thought. Someone whose life had gone exactly according to plan. The turbulence hit 3 hours into the red-eye flight. The plane dropped suddenly, causing passengers to gasp. Emily grabbed onto a seat back to steady herself. Captain Cole's voice came over the intercom, calm and reassuring. As Emily made her way to her jump seat, the plane lurched again, sending her stumbling forward. A strong hand caught her arm. Captain Cole had emerged from the cockpit to check on conditions in the cabin. He steadied her, asking if she was all right. When she admitted it was her first day, a hint of a smile crossed his face. Baptism by turbulence, he called it, noting she was handling it better than some crew he'd flown with for years. The rest of the flight proceeded without incident, but when they approached O'Hare for their return landing, severe thunderstorms delayed them. The crew gathered in the airport lounge, and Emily found herself sitting across from Captain Cole. As hours dragged on, formal barriers between them gradually lowered. Daniel, as he asked her to call him when off duty, shared stories about his years of flying, countries he'd seen, changes in the industry. During a lull in conversation, he made an unexpected personal revelation. 25 years of marriage, he said in a lowered voice, felt like flying the same route over and over. You know every air pocket, every landmark. No surprises left. Emily found herself sharing her own dreams of eventually transferring to international routes, of getting an apartment in New York. When the call finally came to board the crew shuttle back to the hotel, Emily gathered her things, suddenly aware of how comfortable their conversation had become. For the first time in years, someone actually seemed interested in what she had to say. Maybe this job would bring more than just a paycheck, she thought, as the shuttle pulled away from the terminal. Over the next 2 months, their Chicago-Phoenix route became a familiar rhythm. Emily and Daniel maintained professional distance during flights, but something had shifted between them. Small moments accumulated, his approving nod when she handled a difficult passenger, the way he remembered how she took her coffee, their conversations growing longer during layovers. In late March, waiting out a lightning storm in Phoenix, Daniel found Emily in the hotel lobby, flight manual open on her lap. She was studying for her additional safety certification, determined to advance quickly. He sat down beside her, offering to help. 2 hours later, they were still there, his decades of experience making complicated procedures suddenly clear. Emily absorbed everything, her quick understanding impressing him. He commented on her natural abilities, noting that most new attendants take years to develop her kind of instinct. Emily tucked the compliment away like a precious thing. In her world of stern supervisors and competitive colleagues, Daniel's encouragement felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. The pride in his eyes awakened something dormant inside her, a hunger for validation she'd never received from her father. Their conversations began stretching beyond aviation. During a delayed overnight in Denver, they shared a corner table in the nearly empty hotel restaurant until well past midnight. Emily described her dreams of living in Manhattan someday. Daniel talked about the places he'd seen before routes became standardized and flight hours more strictly regulated. He mentioned that his wife didn't understand what their life was like, being between worlds, never quite belonging anywhere, but Emily did. The statement lingered between them, heavy with implication. Emily felt a flush creep up her neck. She did understand the strange disconnection of hotel rooms, the intimacy of sharing confined spaces with strangers, the way time folded differently when you crossed time zones regularly. Daniel saw things in her that she was only beginning to recognize in herself. On a layover 2 weeks later, Daniel handed Emily the flight plan for their next day's journey. His fingers brushed hers, then lingered a moment too long. The touch sent electricity through her, and when she looked up, the expression in his eyes confirmed it hadn't been accidental. That night, Emily lay awake in her hotel room, replaying the moment, understanding they were standing at a threshold neither had yet crossed. The Chicago snowstorm in early April trapped the entire crew in the airport hotel for 36 hours. The first night, most gathered in the hotel restaurant, sharing stories to pass time. As the evening progressed, people drifted away until only Emily and Daniel remained, their table littered with empty glasses, the conversation flowing easier with each passing hour. He confessed that his marriage had been effectively over for years, just two people sharing a house, going through motions. The raw vulnerability in his admission stirred something protective in Emily. They walked to the elevator together, the hotel eerily quiet, snow still falling heavily outside. When they reached her floor, Daniel hesitated, then stepped out with her. Standing before her door, the air between them charged, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. Their first kiss was tentative, but the followed one was voluntary from both sides. Afterward, Daniel assured her this didn't have to be complicated. It could just be them, when they were there, something separate from everything else. The next morning on the plane, they maintained perfect professional distance, though Emily felt herself blushing whenever their eyes met. The compartmentalization shocked her, how easily they slipped into their public roles, their connection invisible to everyone else. It felt dangerous, thrilling, like having a secret superpower. Over the next 4 months, a pattern emerged: professional restraint during flights, passionate reunion in hotel rooms. Cities blurred together: Denver, Chicago, Phoenix, Minneapolis, each one holding moments Emily collected like treasures. A matchbook from the bar where Daniel told her she made him feel alive again. A pressed flower from the park they walked through in Seattle. A napkin with their initials that he'd absently doodled in Dallas. The secrecy became second nature. Daniel invented training sessions and schedule changes to explain his absences to Lynn. Emily guarded her phone and created elaborate explanations for her roommate. But one night, after too many glasses of wine, she confessed to Tara, insisting that Daniel was going to leave his wife. They were going to get a place in Denver together. He just needed time to figure out the finances. Tara expressed concern about the age difference and his marital status, warning that these situations don't typically end well. Emily dismissed her warnings. Tara didn't understand what they had. Couldn't see how Daniel looked at her when they were alone. Couldn't hear the sincerity when he made promises. The previous week, he had told her to give him 6 months to sort things out with Lynn and make sure she was provided for. Then they could start fresh. Emily believed him completely. When they were together for real, everything would be different. No more hiding, no more stolen moments. She began imagining their future together. The apartment they might share, the places they would go, how it would feel to wake up beside him without counting hours until departure. 6 months into their affair, Emily was entirely emotionally invested. Her life had narrowed to the space between their meetings, everything else merely time to endure. Daniel suggested a trip to Paris, not a work layover, but a real vacation, just the two of them. Emily's heart raced at the suggestion, and he promised to arrange everything. Emily spent hours researching Paris, restaurants they should visit, museums to explore, hotels with views of the Eiffel Tower. Paris was just the beginning, she told herself. The start of their real life together. While Daniel showered one evening in their Chicago hotel room, his phone chimed with an incoming email. Emily glanced at it absently, then froze. The preview showed a cruise confirmation, a 25th anniversary Mediterranean voyage for Daniel and Lynn Cole, departing exactly 2 weeks after their planned Paris trip. With trembling fingers, Emily opened his laptop, finding the full itinerary waiting in his inbox. 7 romantic nights celebrating your marriage milestone, the email gushed. Daniel had upgraded to a premium package with private balcony, couples massage, and champagne sunset dinner. Emily stared at the screen, the carefully constructed future she'd imagined shattering around her like dropped glass. Daniel emerged from the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, hair still dripping. Emily sat motionless on the edge of the bed, the laptop open beside her, her face ashen. The cruise confirmation email glowed accusingly on the screen. She confronted him about his deception, her voice barely audible at first but growing stronger with each word. The anniversary cruise scheduled 2 weeks after their planned Paris trip stood as irrefutable evidence of his duplicity. Daniel's demeanor shifted instantly to damage control. He claimed complications, poor timing, that Lynn had arranged the cruise as a family tradition and he couldn't refuse without raising suspicions. As Emily pressed him further, something transformed in Daniel's demeanor. The tender lover vanished, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. He accused her of naivety, suggesting that this was simply how these arrangements functioned. The dismissive tone revealed a truth Emily had refused to see for months. She was merely another diversion for him, another city on his rotating schedule of stopovers. When Daniel questioned what she had expected, if she truly believed he would discard his marriage, reputation, and relationship with his daughter for a flight attendant, the words sliced through Emily like a blade. His casual dismissal of their relationship as mere fun shattered the last fragments of her illusions. She grabbed her bag and left, the door closing behind her with devastating finality. Back in her own room, Emily curled on the bed, sobs racking her body until exhaustion claimed her. She woke hours later, hollow-eyed but coldly focused. She scrolled through months of text messages from Daniel, declarations of longing, promises for their future, detailed accounts of their intimacy. She had photos too, stolen moments in hotel rooms, his handwritten notes, screenshots of their planned Paris getaway. The thought solidified in her mind. His wife deserved to know who she was married to. This wasn't about vengeance, Emily told herself. This was about truth. About preventing Lynn from living decades more in ignorance while her husband built secret lives in cities across the country. Finding Lynn Cole's contact information proved surprisingly easy. Professional photos from hospital charity events showed a handsome woman in her 50s with carefully maintained blonde hair and an elegant, reserved smile. Emily composed the email with surgical precision, attaching dozens of screenshots, photos, and text conversations that chronicled the 6-month affair. Her final message expressed regret for being the bearer of such news, but emphasized that Daniel had never intended to end the relationship. She noted that without Lynn's knowledge, Emily would certainly not have been the last. After hitting send, Emily sat on her bathroom floor, knees drawn to her chest. A strange mixture of vindication and sorrow washed over her. It wasn't about hurting him, She repeated silently, but about the truth. The mantra did little to fill the hollow space that had opened inside her. The next morning, Emily requested a different flight assignment. Sandra, noting her reddened eyes, didn't ask questions. As Emily served passengers in economy class on a flight to Minneapolis, news spread that Captain Cole had been removed from the flight deck minutes before departure. The story circulated through crew channels within hours. Captain Cole had received a call from his wife during pre-flight checks. His perfect, controlled demeanor had shattered in real time as Lynn apparently told him she knew everything. Passengers had witnessed him being escorted from the aircraft, his face ashen. By afternoon, rumors circulated that the airline had placed him on immediate administrative leave pending investigation into fraternization policy violations. Emily avoided the crew lounge, the pitying glances, the whispered speculation. She requested a transfer to the New York base, pushing forward the dream that had once included Daniel. 3 days later, her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number accusing her of destroying what wasn't hers to destroy. She blocked the number, but the damage was done. The text message unleashed a flood of memories, his hands, his voice, the future she'd believed in with such certainty. Sleep eluded her that night. Over the next 2 weeks, reports filtered through the flight attendant grapevine. Daniel had moved into an airport hotel after Lynn changed the locks. His daughter, a college senior, had blocked his number after learning about the affair. Colleagues who had once respected him now exchanged knowing looks behind his back. The man who had commanded every room he entered had become someone others avoided in hallways. Emily tried to move forward. She posted photos of apartment viewings in Queens, shots of Central Park, celebratory drinks with Tara upon receiving her transfer approval. Each post was a deliberate statement. I am fine. I am moving on. I am unbroken. She didn't know that Daniel obsessively scrolled through these posts in his sterile hotel room, whiskey bottle at his elbow, unshaven and hollow-eyed. She didn't see his mounting rage as he watched her seemingly flourish while his life disintegrated. She had taken everything, his marriage, his reputation, his relationship with his daughter, and now she was just fine? The final blow came 6 weeks after the exposure. Daniel received divorce papers from Lynn's attorney, along with notification that she was seeking half his pension and full ownership of their Phoenix home. The airline's ethics committee had scheduled a formal hearing the following week to determine whether his conduct warranted termination. That night, Daniel searched Emily's name online again, finding her latest post, a selfie in front of a New York skyline, captioned New Beginnings. Something cold and calculated settled in his chest. She couldn't just walk away from this. Not when he had lost everything. Daniel Cole barely recognized the man in the hotel bathroom mirror. Dark circles shadowed his bloodshot eyes, and a week's worth of stubble covered his once meticulously groomed face. The small O'Hare Airport hotel room was littered with minibar bottles and room service trays. Sleep came only in restless snatches, interrupted by vivid dreams of his former life slipping through his fingers. The airline hearing was scheduled for tomorrow. His lawyer had called to prepare him, warning that termination was all but certain given the evidence and policy violations. The divorce proceedings were advancing with brutal efficiency, Lynn's attorney dismantling his financial security piece by piece. Daniel's phone buzzed with an airline notification. Flight schedules for next month. Out of habit, he scanned the crew assignments, though his own name was conspicuously absent. His eyes caught on a familiar name, Emily Rivera, no longer assigned to Chicago routes. A note in the system showed her New York transfer approved, starting in 2 weeks. He stared at the screen until the letters blurred. She was moving on, stepping seamlessly into the future she'd planned, while his life lay in ruins around him. A molten rage bubbled up from somewhere deep inside him. This was all her fault. The betrayal, the exposure, the humiliation, all because she couldn't accept the natural conclusion of their arrangement. She shouldn't get to just walk away. The thought took root, growing stronger as the hours passed. Daniel paced the confines of his room, the anger crystallizing into something darker, more focused. He hadn't slept properly in weeks, relying on the prescription sleeping pills he'd used for years to combat time zone fatigue. He pulled the orange bottle from his toiletry bag, rolling it between his palms, considering its contents with new purpose. That night, after 4 whiskeys and a sleepless vigil of scrolling through Emily's social media, Daniel composed a message. He rewrote it several times, carefully calibrating the tone. Regretful but not desperate, apologetic but dignified. We need to talk one last time before you leave. I owe you an apology. What happened wasn't fair to you. Emily's response came the following morning, after his hearing. As expected, the airline had terminated his employment, effective immediately. His commercial pilot's license remained intact, but at 52, with a fraternization scandal attached to his name, his career was effectively over. Her message arrived as he was clearing out his locker. She agreed to meet, but only in a public place. Just to get closure before she left for New York. Daniel suggested a small motel near a neutral ground, not their usual places. He crafted his reasoning carefully. He couldn't show his face at their regular spots after the humiliation, but needed to speak with her properly, not in some crowded restaurant where they'd be overheard. After hesitation, Emily agreed. 2 days before her departure for New York, Daniel prepared with methodical precision. He booked the room under a false name, paid cash. He crushed his prescription pills into fine powder, testing its solubility in various beverages. He purchased a bottle of white wine, her preference during their time together, and rehearsed what he would say, how he would appear. Broken but dignified, accepting responsibility while subtly emphasizing the disproportionate consequences he'd suffered. She needed to understand consequences too. The Lakeview Motel was a far cry from their usual upscale airport hotels. The carpet smelled of decades of cigarette smoke despite the no-smoking signs, and the bedspread's pattern seemed designed to hide unidentifiable stains. The room's single window overlooked the parking lot and the constant stream of planes descending toward a hair. Emily arrived precisely on time, her caution evident in her rigid posture and the way she scanned the room before fully entering. She looked different, her hair shorter, her makeup minimal, dressed in casual clothes rather than her uniform. The sight of her triggered conflicting emotions in Daniel: desire, nostalgia, and underneath it all, the steady current of cold rage. He had positioned himself in the room's single chair, leaving the edge of the bed as her only seating option. 2 plastic cups sat on the nightstand beside the wine bottle, still unopened, a deliberate touch to show he hadn't tampered with anything yet. His appearance was calculated, unshaven but not unkempt, clothing rumpled but clean, suggesting a man struggling but not destroyed. Daniel began his performance with quiet dignity, admitting he'd lost everything: his marriage, his relationship with his daughter, his career. Emily watched him warily, maintaining her emotional distance but listening. He acknowledged his deception about the cruise, claiming it had been a desperate last attempt to repair his marriage before finally leaving Lynn. He portrayed himself as a man torn between obligation and desire, who had handled it badly. As he spoke, he uncorked the wine and poured 2 glasses, keeping his movements natural, unhurried. He sipped from his own glass, establishing trust. The conversation gradually shifted, Daniel steering it toward their connection. How rare it had been. No one had ever understood him like she did, he told her, watching her expression carefully for signs of softening. Emily's guard lowered slightly. She admitted she hadn't wanted to hurt him, but couldn't bear being lied to anymore. When she mentioned needing to use the bathroom, Daniel felt a calm settle over him. The moment she closed the bathroom door, he quickly added the crushed medication to her wine, stirring it with his finger before wiping it dry on his pants. When Emily returned, she took a long drink, eager to finish this painful encounter. They continued talking, Daniel watching intently as the minutes passed. 20 minutes later, Emily's speech began to slur slightly. She blinked repeatedly, trying to focus. Confusion crossed her features as she attempted to stand but found her legs unsteady. "What's happening to me?" Her voice sounded distant, frightened. Daniel watched her with clinical detachment. "You're just tired," he said softly. "Lie down for a minute." As Emily slumped onto the bed, her breathing becoming shallow, Daniel felt oddly peaceful. It wasn't personal, he told himself. It was just solving a problem. Some problems required difficult solutions. The last thing Emily saw was Daniel methodically wiping down surfaces, arranging pill bottles and alcohol to suggest a deliberate overdose. Her consciousness faded as terror gave way to darkness, her future in New York evaporating like mist above the Chicago skyline. Detective Leah Martinez surveyed the motel room with practiced detachment. The young woman's body lay on the bed, oddly peaceful despite the circumstances. Empty wine bottle on the nightstand. Prescription pill bottles arranged nearby. Hotel key card and purse placed neatly on the small desk. Martinez had seen enough suicides to recognize the patterns, but something about this scene felt staged. The motel manager had discovered the body when checkout time passed with no response to phone calls. Emily Rivera, 21, flight attendant. Her airline ID still hung around her neck, the photo showing a smiling young woman with bright eyes and limitless potential. Those same eyes now stared vacantly at the water-stained ceiling. The initial assessment pointed to a straightforward conclusion: overdose combined with alcohol. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. The medical examiner noted nothing immediately suspicious beyond the tragic circumstances. Martinez scrolled through the victim's phone. No suicide note, but a series of unsent text messages in her drafts folder caught the detective's attention. Messages to someone named D expressing confusion, betrayal, determination to move forward. The final unsent message, time-stamped shortly before her estimated time of death, read only, "Something's wrong. I feel strange." Captain Daniel Cole appeared appropriately devastated when interviewed as Emily's former colleague. His performance of shock and grief seemed genuine, his voice breaking at precisely the right moments. He spoke of their brief relationship, his concern after their breakup, her emotional fragility. "She seemed unstable after we ended things," he explained, eyes downcast. "I was worried about her, especially with her transfer coming up. That's why I reached out one last time." He described their meeting as a chance for closure, how she had seemed fine when he left her, perhaps a little drunk but certainly not suicidal. The investigation continued methodically. Forensic analysis revealed the prescription medication in Emily's system matched Daniel's prescription for sleep aids. Hotel security footage showed him leaving 3 hours before her estimated time of death. No cameras captured the interior of the room itself. His fingerprints were present, but he had admitted to being there. The case built was entirely circumstantial, lacking the definitive proof needed for charges. 6 months later, the Cook County Prosecutor's Office declined to pursue the case against Daniel Cole. Insufficient evidence for murder charges. Emily Rivera's death remained officially classified as suicide, despite her mother's passionate insistence that her daughter had been looking forward to her new life in New York. Daniel negotiated a resignation from the airline with partial pension intact. The fraternization policy violation, while serious, was ultimately overshadowed by the tragedy that followed it. The scandal faded from industry gossip, replaced by newer dramas. Lynn Cole, after initial divorce proceedings, reconciled with Daniel, not from forgiveness but from cold financial calculation. Their Phoenix home became a museum of appearances, separate bedrooms disguised as his and hers suites. They attended social functions together, maintained joint accounts, preserved their comfortable lifestyle. Between them stretched a silence so complete it had its own presence. In Chicago, Emily's mother established a foundation for young women in aviation, focused specifically on mentorship and protection from exploitation. Her relentless advocacy led to industry-wide examination of power dynamics between pilots and other crew members. Similar cases emerged from the shadows: young flight attendants manipulated by senior pilots, careers derailed, lives damaged. New policies were implemented across major airlines, with particular attention to reporting mechanisms and zero-tolerance approaches. In Phoenix, Daniel sat in his backyard watching planes ascend into the clear desert sky. From this distance, they looked like toys, their passengers and crew reduced to abstractions. He sipped his whiskey, feeling neither guilt nor remorse. The Emily situation had been a problem, and he had solved it, just as he had solved countless mechanical and navigational problems throughout his career. His life had resumed its ordered pattern. Lynn maintained her separate existence. His pension checks arrived monthly. The system had worked as designed. That same afternoon, in a small apartment in Queens, a landlord opened an envelope containing Emily Rivera's security deposit for an apartment she would never occupy. Her application had been approved the day after her death, the New York dream she had clung to finally within reach, then snatched away. On her grave in Chicago, someone had placed her flight attendant wings, the small gold pin catching sunlight like a promise unfulfilled. The engraved memorial stone read only her name, birth and death dates, and words her mother had chosen. She was meant to soar. She thought she met the love of her life, but she was just a layover in his.